Hey, before you get to the podcast, we just want to say that there are a lot of very deserving places that you can donate money to in order to help out the people in Ukraine right now. But at the top of the description, you'll find a link to a fundraiser set up by a friend of ours, so, maybe consider throwing some money there, or to one of the many other places that need help right now. The invasion of Ukraine is really messed up, and it's the biggest news story right now, and so we didn't want to put out a podcast without acknowledging it at all. But this is a silly good times show, and we didn't feel like it'd be right to just blunder through the subject, so, yeah, solidarity to the people of Ukraine.
Hello and welcome to the MisanthroPod, episode 132. I'm Drumblebee, and as always I'm joined by Wib. Say hello.
Hello.
How are you, Wib?
I'm doing alright. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Unfortunately, we're not joined today by Snipe.
No, she's taking a bit of a mental health break because she's not been doing very well recently. So be sure to wish her well in the comments. But it shall just be us, and I promise that we will not spend an inordinate amount of time speaking about trains.
Yeah, I actually
probably
one of my topics, as much as I very obviously wish her well and blah blah blah. Mental health is very important, but there is one topic that I'm kind of glad I'm not going to talk about when she's here. So
okay,
because I feel like we might genuinely fall out. So
okay,
yeah, we're gonna have to deal with that one.
Is this about Book of Boba Fett or the Mandalorian?
Maybe.
Spoilers
for in 5 minutes' time.
Okay, I feel I should mention that I found out just before the podcast something that is a little devastating.
Mm.
Do you know that they have officially cancelled Neighbours?
No.
Yeah, it's finally ending. I think it's this summer they'll be filming the final episode.
I mean, do you want to know a secret?
What?
It's a dark confession.
Is it?
I didn't know Neighbours was still going. Honestly.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? My understanding is that they stopped showing it in Australia years ago because only the British are depraved enough to still like it.
Okay, I like that story. That's good. That's good.
But anyway, what have you been up to, my friend?
So I've done a bunch of stuff since last we recorded. And the first,
I suppose we haven't even remotely acknowledged the fact that we just didn't record a podcast for 2 months. Sorry, it happened.
Yeah, Christmas and then New Year, and then it's been a bit cold, I guess.
Stuff.
Yeah, life and stuff. But we're back. Mm. That's far too committal. We're doing this one.
2/3 of us are back this exact moment in time,
and that's all we can guarantee.
Yes.
Right, well, I'm going to do the good content thing and leave the thing I alluded to the end, because that's how content works. Keeps
people excited. Yep. They want to, yeah. Good call.
So I've done a bunch of other stuff, though. So we watched, I've completely forgotten the name. In my notes, it says Fall/Good/Nice Guy, and I genuinely can't remember what it's called. It's a film with Ryan Reynolds where he's like a NPC character. Is it called Nice Guy? Good Guy? I don't know. It's a very, very generic name. But he just plays a character called Guy, and he's an NPC in a video game. Have you seen any trailers for it or anything about it? I'm guessing from your silence, you might not have seen anything.
I have not seen the movie Free Guy.
Free Guy. That's the one. Yes.
I have not seen it. I saw one clip that was that contained like 15 different references to other intellectual properties, and I think it erased some of my memories of childhood. So I thought I probably shouldn't watch this movie.
Yeah, it does have. There's one. I think they celebrate the fact that I think it's made by Fox, who are owned by Disney, so they celebrate. Yeah. There's like a 2-minute sequence, or like I can't even. There's a short sequence where they just celebrate the fact that they have the rights to basically everything in the universe and just show it all at once. But the rest of the film isn't really like that.
Okay, I mean, to be fair, my dad has told me that it is actually quite good.
So for those who don't know, it's a character called Guy, and he's Ryan Reynolds, and he's sort of Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds, which for now I can still enjoy. I think there is very definitely going to be a time when I'm going to be very done with that, and it's going to switch like it's just going to happen, and then it's going to be like, nope, very done with this now. But for now, I'm still on the right side of this, so I can deal with Ryan Reynolds. If nothing else, just to watch him for a bit. He's quite an attractive guy.
True.
I mean, in a very sort of generic, boring kind of way, but
Again, you're not wrong.
But yeah, so he wakes up in the city and he goes off and goes to work, and it's all a bit weird. And then it turns out, without going into spoilers, but you see this in the trailer, it's quite good actually. So it turns out he's an NPC character in a video game. So there's loads of people, all the player characters wear glasses, which is how you can see how they're player characters, and they're all off doing it's Grand Theft Auto type things. They're running around stealing cars, robbing banks, whatever. And everyone who's not wearing glasses, so Guy and everyone else, they're just NPCs, and they just have set lines to do and things, and they just kind of background people, and they don't evolve or anything. But for whatever reason, which I won't go into too much, but he gets basically realizes that he develops a personality, and then
this feels very similar to one of the books that Yahtzee wrote called Mogworld, which is set in a sort of WoW parallel. That an NPC effectively becomes kind of aware of that they can break outside of their limitations.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. So it's not the most original of stories, I'm sure.
What are you saying? No one's heard of this movie Tron.
But yeah, it's a very enjoyable film because you can they're in a CGI computer land, so they can do all the sort of explosions and weird computer stuff. But it's not groundbreakingly clever or anything, but as a blockbustery type entertainment film, I really enjoyed it actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. I was expecting it to be to have loads of things that wound me up, and there is things it is very much a lot of the time the game developers are falling out with this NPC and they're just reboot it and we need to do this and we need to that's just not how that works. It's just if it's a game they could just if this guy is genuinely causing an issue, you could just delete him. It's there's lots of various contrived reasons why it becomes a problem, and you're okay, it's but I was expecting that to wind me up way more, and I'm just you know what, it's fine, it's a film, just watch it.
I mean, those sort of things, I generally speaking, my opinion of I think calling these things plot holes is perhaps putting too much emphasis on them, but leaps of logic and contrivances in movies are only a problem if you're not being entertained. If you're being entertained, then you overlook them because you're being entertained, and
Yeah, and
these things only, really, you realistically, you should only notice the problems when the movie stops being fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Engaging, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah. So yeah, I went into it. I'd heard good things from people, but I was not sure it's quite my cup of tea. Maybe let's give it a go. And yeah, really enjoyed it. So I would actually. It's on. We watched it on Disney Plus, so I don't think I would. I don't think I was upset that I missed it at the cinema. But if it's something you're subscribed to anyway, yeah, I would actually. I would actually recommend it. So yeah, and yeah, the whole reference thing is it's short enough to be oh cool, they're showing that thing, rather than the Ready Player One type thing where you're just done with it, and it becomes that's the whole point of the film, and then that's not really saying that. I mean, I enjoyed that film too, to be honest. But they're making a second one, right? Or there's a second book. I assume they're making a second film.
There is a second book, which I've heard is slightly better.
Oh, okay.
Slightly. I've heard there is an iota of self-awareness in it.
Okay.
Which for Ernest Cline is a big step.
By self-awareness, does it reference the first book? in the second.
Yeah. So you know how the first book is just him listing every work of fiction that Ernest Cline has ever consumed? Yeah. This is him just recounting all of the works of fiction in the first book. It's self-referential to his references.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Which would actually be quite good, to be honest, and potentially.
They start actually acknowledging the fact that the world is falling apart and they should probably stop caring about the Oasis.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I remember correctly, they do it in a very stupid way because it's Ernest Cline. So
But yeah, so that was a good film. In slightly more, I don't want to say highbrow because that sounds far too pretentious, and I don't want to dig down on entertainment films. But we've been watching Succession on TV. I say on TV.
I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
It's a TV show. We've not been watching it on TV. Yeah, it's really... I think I hate it, but I also really can't stop watching it. Like, I watch it. Oh, okay, so if you don't know what it's about, Succession, it's a HBO, so it's like, just to give you the idea of, high budget production values, blah, blah, blah.
Well, they are called home box office after all.
Exactly. And it is about sort of the Murdochs, but not. It's a made-up company with made-up people in it, but it's like a media conglomerate that also owns a load of other stuff, and its TV network is called ATN. I can't remember what it stands for, but they're Fox News equivalent, quite like right-wing sensationalist, blah, blah, blah. And they also have newspapers and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's sort of like fairly obviously meant to be that. But interestingly enough, though, because I don't know what I'd call it. I'd probably just call it like a drama or something. But when you look it up at Wikipedia, it says it's a satirical comedy, which there is funny bits, but it's definitely not a comedy. And I'm fairly sure they only call it satirical so they can get away with such an obvious satire of real people. Like,
it could be a dramedy.
It is not a dramedy. There is definitely laugh out loud bits, but it's one of those ones. So it's all about the old guy who owns this business, and he's got 3 kids who at some point are going to take over it because that's all the qualification you need.
Yeah,
and it's called Succession because it's kind of all about how he's going to pass it on to his kids. But yeah, all of the characters are awful people. And, it's probably not their fault because they've been brought up in this whole, all the money you want sort of around this dick of a guy. Like, it's not necessarily their fault, but they're all awful
those
people.
Systems those systems basically are just breeding grounds for bad people.
Absolutely. So you watch it and you just go, they're all rich and they're all mega, and they're all like, the big dilemma is like, again, it's one of those ones where, spoilers, but not really. The big dilemma is that there's like various takeover bids and they don't know who else is going to take over the company. But it's like, well, worst case, and you get taken over, like, people can't steal the company off you. They're going to have to buy it off you, whether that's force or not. Like, you're going to walk away with the money or the company. Like, what's the problem? Like, what's the drama? It's just retire. You have enough money now to retire. Go and do something. Like, I don't understand the motives of any single character in the whole thing, and I hate them all. I
think we have established why neither of us are CEOs.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah. If I suddenly got enough money that I could pay myself, minimum wage a year for the rest of my life, like, why would you want any more than that? Really?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. You just go,
minimum wage in a wage where the minimum wage is like a living wage, not the minimum wage in a world, minimum wage in a world where it's like dramatically under. So don't get me
living
wrong.
Wage.
Yes, to pay myself a living wage. But like, I just don't understand why these people want it anymore. They could do so much good, and some of them at various times give hints that they want to do good, and then they're like overwhelming need to own this company or whatever.
But Matthew, don't you understand? Number go up.
I know, but like, oh yeah, all of the characters are they're really good characters and it's really compelling, but they're all terrible people, and I just get so angry while watching it because they're all making terrible, probably good business decisions, but like terrible human decisions or moral decisions, or even just good for them decisions. Oh, but yeah, it's one of those ones where you watch it like, oh, we're going to have to watch another one. Not because it's like really clickbaity or not cliffhangery or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I just need to know what happens next in the next episode, not just the next minute. Yeah, it's... I mean, and the theme tune is it's like a little piano, like ditty thing, and it's very excellent. You just sort of sit along and like pretend to play piano to it every time for the next like day after you've watched it, which is forever because you watch it every night because all you want to do is watch the rest of Succession. Yeah, I mean, people who like that sort of TV have probably already know about it and have already watched it. It's one of those ones where it's like it's not exactly a under the radar subtle thing that no one's heard of. Like it's a pretty big show.
It's this new underground hit that no one's heard of.
But yeah, we're not quite finished it yet. There's 3 series so far. I don't know. Maybe they're making more. I kind of don't want to check because then I don't like knowing if it's finishing because then you're like, oh, I know that this is the last ever episode. Something dramatic's going to happen or not.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm halfway through the 3rd series. And it's really good. I can definitely recommend that. Couple of little quick ones. There's a new series of Queer Eye out. Did you ever watch Queer Eye?
I saw bits and pieces of it.
If you want like a proper, like, wholesome, feel good, and yet you'll also be crying most of the way through sort of telly, it's very good for that. Like it's pretty formulaic and whatnot, but it is just very like some of the episodes, man. They're so sad and so heartwarming. It's just like, oh yeah, sometimes you just need a good cry and a good like happy ending, so to speak. Yeah. Don't have much to say on it apart from that, but yeah, there's a new series out. It's interesting actually because it was obviously made. Some of the episodes were started to be filmed before COVID, and then COVID happened, and then a lot of the episodes are just dealing with They filmed it in COVID, and they filmed it. They're going out to meet these people, and they're like maybe down or whatever because of COVID related things. So it is quite interesting seeing that like ticking through.
It is going to be deeply surreal, like in for people who are I say this as if COVID's just going to be a thing that disappears.
Well, it has. We're not, in the UK, at least, we're not doing any more tests. Therefore, no cases. Therefore, COVID's over. But let's just push on from that.
But no, it's going to be surreal once for people that are born after this point in history. Who will like be looking back at old media, and then there'll just be this handful of years where just everything's a bit weird, and because a lot of things, like a lot of like obviously reality stuff has to acknowledge it, but like a lot of fiction just has taken the bold stance of just pretending it doesn't happen. So there's going to be these times where you go like everything just felt off for this period of time, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's going to be a surreal little time capsule left that's not necessarily going to be reflective of the reality of living in that time, but it's going to be a time,
Yeah, right. An example of that is I know not that anyone goes back and watches episodes of soaps from the past, really. I mean, maybe if you're a Big Neighbours fan. I'm not sure if anyone, it's a not really done thing to go and watch episodes of soaps and things from the past, but I know quite a few soaps in the UK at least, they like carried on filming or like stopped for a little while right at the start when no one knew what was happening, but then started filming again, but weren't allowed to be close and had to distance. So a lot of the episodes and like scenes they don't show the characters together. They like film one, then cut away and film another character. So it looks like it's meant to look like they're like chatting or interacting, but actually they're filmed completely separately.
So it's like an entire series made of shot reverse shots.
I don't really watch any soaps, so I've never actually seen this. But I was reading an article a while ago about like how that was happening, and how they were, when they were trying to be close, they had to film with like a bit of plastic or glass or whatever between them, but they had to like try and position the camera so it wouldn't get any of the reflection, so it wouldn't look like it was there. But yeah, it's interesting that they and I don't know if this is all of them. Again, like I'm not into soaps, but surely it would have been easy for them just to acknowledge this is set now. Everyone knows what's happening. If we just have to wear masks or what distance in the series, that also ticks the box for filming in masks and in distance. So would that not have just been the easier choice? Yeah,
you don't have to explain social distancing when you establish that everyone needs to social distance. It's not that weird.
Yeah, but I think quite a few of them made a choice not to do that, which,
I mean, to be fair, one of the other big soaps, Professional Wrestling, had a whole thing they had to do where they didn't have crowds. And I've seen some bits of it because I'm not a wrestling person at all. But
I've gone through phases. I have gone through phases. The first of which was obviously when I was like a kid or a teenager or whatever that. Early teenage probably. But I did get quite into it as like, I think I was at uni, so I must have been like, mid-20s or whatever. And I went through a good year or so of watching like Raw and SmackDown like every week. And it was like, why am I into this now? I like, obviously, as a kid, like I knew it was fake, but didn't want to accept it was, and that sort of thing. Yeah. But like, it was just quite entertaining. What can I say? Like, it is just good, quite good fun. I'm not into it now. I have no idea what's going on now. But
speaking of that, actually, on the Adeptus Podcastus, the episode they put up today, well, when we're recording it today, they had Samoa Joe on because he's a big Warhammer fan.
Huh. Okay.
Which is a little surreal, but yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, great.
But yeah, I was going to say, they didn't have crowds, and like I saw some footage from it, and it's really surreal because obviously they can't bounce off the crowd, and you can hear them like making the calls.
I was going to say, because like the whole thing of it is that they like tell each other what they're going to do before they do it, but you don't hear that because the crowd noise and the camera cuts away to the crowd or whatever.
Yeah, I heard it was like really like taxing to do.
I bet. Yeah,
you got none of the feedback because like we both know what it's like to for playing music, playing to a crowd that's giving you nothing back, and how that drains you of energy. Like,
you are right, Red. 3 does count as a crowd.
We have played to more than 3 people. We have
played to bigger crowds than that occasionally. Yes,
occasionally, sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's always very surreal. It's going to be, I know, it's just one of those things I think about sometimes of like, this is, how history leaves these, obviously affects the media that we produce. And so all pieces of media are effectively time capsules of the time in which they were made. So, even if they don't directly acknowledge it.
Yeah. What else have I got? Oh, so I played a game. Not got much to say about it, but we played a VR game. But it's a multiplayer VR game, but only one of you's in the VR. Have I mentioned it before? It's called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
It is. Yeah, we played it. So we got our VR in middle of lockdowns and COVID and stuff. Not to want to dwell on that with multiple topics, but so it's a game where one of you it's on PC and I don't know about consoles, but it's on PC at least as well. And usually it's like one of you on your laptop or on a desktop with the screen angled away has to defuse a bomb, but you don't know how. And then everyone else playing can't see your screen, so can't see the bomb, but they've got the bomb diffusal manual with and it's just basically a load of puzzles you need to do, like which wire do you cut, which button do you press, all this sort of stuff. So you, as the player, you have to read, like say out what you can see as if you're talking on the phone or whatever with a bomb diffusal expert, and they talk you through how to do it. And there's like time limits and other shit like flying at you and stuff. We played it in a big group before on a PC, and it was really good fun. And then I saw it came out on the Quest. I was like, oh, we're gonna have to get this. But it would only been me and Ruth, like 2 of us. So it's not the whole point is like if there's 2 of you, you can kind of just go through logically and get it done. But the fun thing is when you get lots of people involved, they've all got their like instructions from their puzzle, and they're all having to like shout over each other because you've got a time limit.
I guess you sort of played the ideal version of it first.
Yeah. So we've not had a chance to do that much, but with things opening up a bit more and whatnot, we had some friends around a little while ago, and we had a play with like 4 of us. Oh, and it's really good. Like just being involved. Like the last time we played it was years ago when we played it before. And doing it on a PC in a room, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, but you're just sat in the room and you can see them. But when you're doing it in VR, like suddenly you can't see the people shouting at you, so you can't like see where it's coming from or anything. And it does put you in that whole like you are in a separate room with this bomb that's about to explode. Yeah, and it makes it like the like slight extra immersion just makes it so much more intense. Yeah, it's a really fun one. And the puzzles, like cool. None of them are that particularly complicated, but some of they like take time, a lot of them, and you're very aware there's like a ticking clock there, and then as you start progressing through levels there's like more and more puzzles, and then there's like alarm clocks that you have to like press snooze on occasionally. It doesn't do anything if it's going off. It's just a really annoying beep so you can't hear anyone. And there's levels where like the lights go out and you're in the dark for a bit, and various like annoyances happen to like all try and distract you, and then you've got this ticking clock, and yeah, it's a fun one, and it's in a bit of a niche in that it's a VR game, but it's a multiplayer one, because like usually if you've got mates around or whatever, you're like, great, sit on a console or sit on a thing and play a game together, split screen, or watch a film together. And you can do all these things, but VR, beyond the sort of, hey guys, we've like bought a VR, have you ever tried it? No, okay, let's watch you play the like, you know, the demo for it or whatever, and you can have fun doing something you've not done before, and we can have fun watching you like cock about. Like, that's
it's very rarely a collaborative experience.
Yeah, but that lasts for like, you know, not long, and then you're like, well, we can't really play this together because then you've got everyone else in the room sat there just not doing anything. But this is like a VR game that you can play together, which is really fun.
I think the closest I've had to that is that I have played of actually playing a VR game with people, is that I did play some of Star Wars Squadron, because you can play that in VR.
Okay.
And you can play that multiplayer, so yeah.
Okay.
I mean, fundamentally, it just means that you can look around your cockpit, but it is...
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Man, I really good game.
I really want to try it out. I've just not had time. So that tangented on to my penultimate point about not having time and not... So like I said earlier, I've not turned my desktop on since the last podcast recording. And I just haven't... I've just not had the time, and it's mildly frustrating because I want to play more games. And I think I do have the time. It's just going upstairs and sitting in a room by myself for the evening. I just haven't quite got the willingness to do that. I know we don't really talk about... Oh, sorry, go.
The trick is to have a small flat, and so you have to have your computer in your living room. So then, whenever you're on it, you're always your partner's always there. That's the trick.
Yeah, that would do it. The downside of that is that we could do that, but then all of the cables would be unplugged all of the time, probably, because some little wandering one would run around and find it funny to press buttons. It's a slight limiting factor on that one, unfortunately.
How dare you spoil my perfect plan with such things as realism and logistics and child safety,
but
nanny state.
So I know we don't normally talk about like tech news or whatever, because that's not what people come here for. But have you seen anything about the Steam Deck?
No.
Have you been following?
No, I have not.
It looks interesting. So it's a handheld PC that Steam have released. It's releasing around now, and so many people order it. They're like back orders are like going on.
Shit, is that only just coming out? Like, I remember that being like it being mentioned ages ago.
Yeah, so it's releasing around. I think like all the reviews and things. That the hardware reviews came out like a few weeks ago, as of recording. The physical units went out to reviewers like around then, but like they've just had the embargo lifted. It might not be today, but it's like around now-ish, and people are starting to get there. Apparently Gabe Newell like hand delivered some of the first units around like Seattle where he's from, just because he's like, whatever, photo ops or whatever.
And he does look like Santa these days. So.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So it's around now. I mean, like, you know, if you've got to get on a waiting list to pre-order it, sort of thing. So, not if you ordered one now, I don't think you get it anytime soon. But in theory, they are out, and it does look quite interesting. So it's like it's not the first of its kind or whatever, but it's a handheld PC with like it looks like the Switch but a bit bigger. So it's like a screen in the middle, a controller attached on it. There's like joysticks, but there's also touchpads, like basically similar to the. Did you ever see the Steam controller, which had instead of D-pads and buttons, it had like touchpad haptic things? There's like little versions of that on it, so you can play mouse and keyboard games like using a mouse. Not as good as a mouse, obviously, but better than a joystick.
I feel like it says something about me that when that kind of the basic configuration of a handheld system is described, that's like that. My instant point of comparison is the Sega Game Gear.
Yeah. See, I went to Switch because I'm not old. I'm like
you're not that much younger than I am.
If that, yes, but you won't forget it.
This is true. I will always be older than you. This is true.
No, I had Game Boys growing up, none of your fancy Segas.
I also had a Game Boy.
Couldn't afford the battery. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, you see, the thing is my parents were divorced, so I had one in one place and one in the other. Okay. So
it looks really interesting because like it's not the first of its kind. There's been handheld PCs before, various, but they've always been quite niche. In that there's not many of them, and therefore they're expensive, and also they're either having to like get like compatibility of games and things. Is always a little bit tricky in getting, it's a small thing. You've only got to have like a little low power processor, not a dedicated graphics card.
Yeah.
Like you're only going to use it for like emulation or retro games or whatever. But hardware is getting to the point now where like mobile CPUs with like onboard graphics are getting to the point where you can like actually run not because a lot of the modern graphics cards, like new graphics cards that no one can possibly buy because they're all out of stock everywhere. But they're like all designed to run like 1440p or 4K games. But like when you've got a little 800 by whatever it is resolution 7-inch screen, actually you don't need quite as ridiculously powerful graphics cards anymore. So like smaller onboard graphics can run a lot of modern games. So it is an interesting thing, and it's Linux, not Windows. But that means that Steam have spent the last however many years since he announced it, like going through, and they promised to have all of the Steam library compatible by the time it came out. That has not happened at all. But
I mean, that is one of those promises where you go, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But like a lot of games are, and the ones that aren't native for Linux, they've come up with like some compatibility layer so you can play a lot of games. And there's the limitation. Not all games work by any means, but they're like they really want this to succeed, and they're spending a lot of time making it so it will. And then also the fact that, I mean, some of its competitors, like Windows-based little computers, they're all like $1,000 or 1,500 quid or dollars or whatever. They're all like mega expensive, whereas the intro Steam Deck is 350 quid, like $400.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's not
that's not bad at all.
It's not pocket change. It's not something you just buy on a whim for most people, but it's like achievable.
Well, when you compare how much it costs to put together even a barely acceptable gaming PC is going to cost you a lot more than that.
Exactly. And then the advantage of a gaming PC, you've got your Steam library, so you have to spend money on games. Because my example was Switch, that's like, what, 250 quid? But then the games are all, if you want Nintendo, like the first party, Pokemon's, Mario's things, they're all like 60 quid. Whereas this is the same price as like it's not quite as cheap as a Switch, but like it's that sort of, it's closer to Switch than gaming PC. But then it's your Steam library, so you already own all the games for it. So it's like, this is interesting.
I mean, there are definitely some games that I've got in the Steam library that I'm like, I don't really care about this to play it when I'm sitting down at the PC, but if this was something that I would play on a handheld device, I'd probably get more out of this. Yeah,
and the other interesting thing about it is, it is a PC. It's a Linux PC. It's not Windows, so it has potentially some limitations there. Although you can just put Windows on it at some point. Not at the moment. The hardware drivers aren't like finished, so it's all a bit weird. But the point, eventually, you'll be able to just install Windows on it if you want. And you can, even with Linux, it's just a PC. So you could just go to the desktop. It's got a USB-C port on it. You put a dock on there with a HDMI cable and a keyboard and mouse. It's just a PC. Yeah, so I'm vaguely interested because I reckon, because I don't know, what I'm thinking, and I could, given graphics card shortages and things, I reckon I could potentially flog my gaming PC, despite it being, I don't even know how many old now. I mean, the processor is a 4th gen Intel. I can't remember which one it is. Core i5 46, 50, who knows, 40 something.
The last time I understood PC components, Tony Blair was still Prime Minister. Yeah.
Well, the point is, it's a 4th generation Intel processor, and they're now up to 12th generation. So it's that old, with a 970 in it, which is, I mean, now they're up to 30. So 9, 10, 20, 30. So it's not modern, but I reckon I could probably sell my gaming PC for more than the cost of a Steam Deck. Given,
possibly.
New graphics cards at the moment go for 2 or 3 times their RRP. So I don't know. I'm tempted to
Was
try
this
and do
all
that.
just a big way for you to build this up so that you are attempting to use this platform to flog your PC?
No, but that's a really
Linked
good idea.
below will be an eBay page.
No, that genuinely didn't cross my mind, and yet now.
Drummer's independent trading here.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah. No, I just wanted to know if you'd heard of this and if you'd had any thoughts. And like, it is very limiting. Like, it doesn't play all games, and like the experience is not as good as a desktop. But like the fact that I just haven't played a game on my desktop for 2 years, like, oh, maybe it is something that's worth. Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, recently I've been kind of going through a thing of not as extreme as getting rid of a PC because my job kind of relies on it. But, of looking at things that we've got, because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a small flat, and being like, have I done anything with this in the last few years? And if not, do I really want this anymore? I got rid of a bunch of DVDs and games and stuff just because I'm like, I literally haven't thought about this movie in like 5 years. Why do I bother owning a DVD of it if I'm probably never going to watch it again?
Yeah, if you really want to watch it, it's probably on one of the streaming / the internet.
The hardest one for me is that I've been having the same thing with my CD collection because I've literally not listened to any of them in like 7 years because it's so easy to access music online. And on the one hand, of having physical copies of this stuff is good because it means it's yours, you have it. It's not part of the weird era of capitalism we've entered where you don't really own anything.
No, you pay. You have the rights to listen to it for now while we allow you and while you're still paying.
Yeah, but also it takes up a lot of room, and I'm just not listening to them. I mean, I'll keep stuff that has sentimental value or is rare and like you can't get anymore. But like, I can probably get rid of like that CD, that old AC/DC CD. I think I'm probably going to be able to find AC/DC for the rest of human existence. You know.
Yeah, I did that recently. Not even recently, a little while ago. I got rid of most CDs. The only ones I kept, I've got a couple of like signed ones that I kept, and most of our CDs. I've got a hard copy of all of our CDs.
Yeah,
and that's basically it. Yeah, there's just like a couple of sentimental ones, and even those, like, I haven't thought about them for years. They're just on a shelf somewhere until this conversation. So don't really know. Really know why I've kept those. But yeah, it's a hard one to. Something I got rid of a little while ago when we were like, I think probably when we were moving over to France, and we were like, basically we had to fit all of our belongings into one van, and we were like, that was quite a sort of, okay, we have to like get rid of stuff or sell stuff or give away stuff that we don't want because we could have paid for storage for 3 years, but like if it wasn't important enough to take with us, like, was it important enough to keep? But that was quite a good sort of incentive to do that. But one of the things I got rid of, I had like a wallet thing that had ticket stubs and wristbands from like basically every gig I've been to. And I was like, I really like the fact that I have this, but it's just something that it's in the attic or in my parents' attic or in the drawer somewhere. I don't think about it or acknowledge it or look at it or anything until the next time I move house, and then it just goes to the next house into the bottom of the drawer. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah. But that took a long time to sort of accept that now they're gone. I'm like, okay, maybe in the future I might regret it, and it could be something that was cool to have, but like I've still got, and it might prompt memories and things, but also it is
difficult to separate the things that you're keeping because they have genuine sentimental value or the things you're just keeping for the sake of it.
Yeah,
and like ultimately, if something brings you joy, keep it. Like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Especially, by the way, if anyone is listening to this and they are a teenager and they're a young enough teenager that they have not yet gotten rid of their toys, keep them. You will regret it when you're like 23 and you go, "Damn, I wish I'd have kept that Megazord." You will. Trust me on this.
Are toys that kids would have now as good as the toys that we had when we were kids?
The only thing I'm really qualified to speak of is Transformers, and modern Transformers are actually great.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware that our toys were shit. But
not all of them. I genuinely think
Tracy Island was great.
Yeah, Tracy Island was great, and the Power Rangers toys were really good. I've still got Serpentera. That's the one that for some reason I still have. Which is Lord Zed's giant dragon thing. But yeah, apart from that, I don't have any of the other ones, which is a pity. But they're really solid. Like you could beat, you could beat a home intruder to death with that thing, you know.
Yeah. How did we get here from Steam Deck? Anyway, the point. if anyone happens to have one by the time this comes out, or has any thoughts, chuck them in the comments or an email, because I'd be intrigued to see what people think. Because, like, you know, you can watch reviews all day on YouTube, but, like, I don't know. I'm just intrigued as to people's real opinions on it. Because I'm genuinely tempted. And it would be like admitting defeat, like selling the game on PC. It'd be like, you know what? Because I'm always in the back of my mind, like, oh, yeah, I'll come back to that at some point. But I feel like by the time I come back to it, like, it's going to be so out of date, it'll be, A, worthless. Or, like, you know, negligible money. I won't be able to afford to buy a Steam Deck with it, potentially.
Yeah.
And like it would probably not be able to run modern games that great by then anyway. So I might, if I did finally get back into PC gaming, I'd probably want to get a newer one anyway, or upgrade or whatever. So I'm like, well, maybe it is the best idea. I don't know. Anyway, if anyone's got any thoughts,
soliciting advice.
That was more my point, rather than. But also, if anyone wants to buy a gaming PC and is currently stuck with the graphics card shortage and chip shortage and all that sort of stuff, this can still play most modern games at 1080 at nearly the highest settings. Last I checked, which may or may not have been years ago. Anyway, that wasn't the point. Right, very last thing I've got to talk about.
Okay.
We've been watching The Mandalorian.
Okay.
My overall thoughts, just as a heads up, is that it is fine, I guess.
Okay.
And I think that's about as positive as I can get about it so far.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was slightly worrying about mentioning that to Snipe, because I feel like she might disown me.
It's. I mean, all I'll say is that this will be kept between the two of us, so that Snipe doesn't exercise like her power and just kick you off the podcast forever.
Yeah, which I think would be a, you know, knowing her opinions would probably be reasonable. No, it is fine. The first series was okay. I have a more controversial opinion, or at least more controversial to Snipe.
Okay.
So we started off and we were like, oh, maybe whatever. We watched the end, and it was fine by the end, and we quite enjoyed it. But like, the best bits. And the bits we enjoyed most were all of the bits where the main Mandalorian bloke wasn't in it. Because he's just really boring. Like, it's down to the whole can't take his hat off, so it could just be anyone under there. But, like, it was somehow not... We didn't find it, like, that mysterious or interesting. We were just like, he's just like... There's no acting coming through. So he's just like a blank box that doesn't do much. And occasionally there's a couple of cool scenes where he could do, like, cool fighty stuff. But a lot of the time, he's just being a bit crap. And a bit boring. I don't know, like... Okay. Yeah. Like, it's got a bit more interesting now. We're sort of slowly starting to see a little bit more of his personality. But in this, like, I think the second series, which we've not finished yet. So we are going to. It is still, you know, we're enjoying it enough to keep going with it. But, yeah, it's just... I don't know, we're just not... We're not... Like, I've watched Star Wars as us, but we're not, like... You know, watching it and being like,
yeah,
the nostalgia factor is less because, like,
I mean, like, I will admit, like, because, like, you know, I've you know watched through Book of Boba Fett recently, and though it has a lot of flaws. I'll probably talk about this in my bit. Actually, I might as well talk about it now. It makes sense to talk about it now. Yeah, Book of Boba Fett's pretty good, but it is a quite flawed series. And it's that thing where, like, you know, people say what they think is wrong with it, and I agree with a lot of the complaints. The people who are just complaining that, you know, that one bike is red and that one is blue, that's please go outside. But like, ultimately, I just like Star Wars, and I'm not 100% objective about this stuff.
Yeah, which I mean is fair.
Yeah, Star Wars just makes me happy. That world is somewhere where I really enjoy like stories being told in, and even when it is flawed, I still feel a little bit like a little kid watching Return of the Jedi on a VHS that was taped off terrestrial TV. And so yeah, I can't like separate that entirely, and nor do I try to.
No, absolutely.
No. And you are totally entitled to your own opinion, no matter how wrong it may be.
Yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed after all, like hearing all the good things and being like, I mean,
to be fair, if you've probably heard the most of it from Snipe, and you are not getting like a quarter. Like if you are going from how much she loves it, you are not getting a fair depiction of a work of media, because it's going to be bigged up in your mind to be amazing.
Yeah, but yeah. I was aware of that going into it. But I wasn't going into it thinking it would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There is good bit. Our favourite bit is the bit that the heist episode we really enjoyed. So that was the first episode. We were like, I can't remember where that it was, like the fourth episode, or it was early-ish, but not near the start.
Yeah,
where he like breaks people out of a space prison.
Yeah.
That was a really good episode, actually. We enjoyed that one, and we're like, okay, this is because we're getting to the point where like, shall we bother carrying on? And that one happened. We're like, okay, cool. This is there is good bits. It's great. We'll keep watching. I think our favourite scene is the one with the two stormtrooper biker blokes chatting.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yes,
like just watching that, we're just like, yeah, this is another scene without the Mandalorian in. is the best bit, and then we're like, oh, Taika Waititi directed this episode. That's why it's brilliant. Great, okay, well that's not us venturing far outside our comfort zone, to be honest, but fine. we still really enjoyed it. That was glorious. I really enjoyed that. And then the Mandalorian turns up and is a bit boring for a bit. I was like, no, I want to watch those guys be interesting again. I like it would have got old, and obviously you couldn't have a whole episode of that. But yeah, he's fine. He's just. I just wish he had chance to act a bit more. I kind of just don't believe. I feel like for most of the first series is like, I don't even know how much like what's his name, Pedro Pascal's even in it.
If you are looking carefully, you can often tell when it's him and when it's a stunt double.
Okay. But I just kind of didn't believe it was him ever, really. Because it's like he doesn't have a chance to shine through just because of the nature of the role and the nature of the, whatever his name, I've forgotten his actual name, but the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Din.
That's the one, yeah. Yeah, and just the nature of his character and the nature of the costume and the helmet and whatnot. He just didn't have a chance to shine through properly. I don't know. Yeah, it was just, yeah. It's fine, we'll keep watching it. But I'm glad I'm not paying for Disney Plus for it.
Yeah, no. You are fully entitled to your opinion, but I will mention that I'm sitting here at our desk, and there are three separate things that are Mandalorian related on the desk right now.
Yeah, and like I'm not.
Four
either,
because there's a little bobblehead over there.
Yeah, and I'm not by any means saying that you're wrong or anyone else who enjoys it is wrong. It's just It's just not quite.
Yeah, if it doesn't gel with you, it doesn't gel with you.
Like, it's fine. It's enjoyable. We'll keep watching it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I would be intrigued to see how you would feel about Book of Boba Fett afterwards. Because it is... Okay, how can I put this? There are parts of it that are... There's one particular part of it that is very much like The Mandalorian.
Well, so yeah, Boba Fett is a Mandalorian.
Yes.
And is a bounty hunter.
Yes.
Is it the same series, basically? How is it different?
Well, you know how in fiction sometimes there's more than one character in something? And one of those two characters are different people. Yeah. The main characters are different people. That's why they are different shows.
Okay, right, okay. Well, fuck me for asking a question, I guess.
Sorry.
No.
I understand.
Very fair, but you get what I'm like getting at, right?
Yeah, they are very, very similar series in a lot of respects, especially for like one episode. Well, actually, not like 2 episodes where they're very, very similar. But it's just telling the story of It like goes through the story of Boba Fett and what has been happening to him since he got punked into the Sarlacc. In Return of the Jedi, basically.
Yeah.
And catching you up with where he was and what happened and what he's doing now. I mean, I don't know how much... One of the things is that because I've watched all of the series of Star Wars, like the various animated series, except I haven't watched Droids and Ewoks. I think I did watch them as a kid, but I am going to watch them at some point, yeah. But I've watched like all the modern canon stories, and like there's lots of characters and concepts that show up there that... are fun for me for seeing them in live action and stuff like that. Again, it's that stuff of like when I watch these, I can't really be fully objective about them. But they are different shows, and they do have different strengths and weaknesses. I don't think Book of Boba Fett is as good as The Mandalorian, but it also has a lot of fun with things. And I will be intrigued to see how you enjoy it.
Well, if we get through The Mandalorian before our free trial of Disney Plus or whatever, I think we've got 3 months and we're a month and a bit in, so
yeah,
we'll see.
It's only like 8 episodes.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's me and my controversial opinions out of the way.
Okay.
Back me up, anyone, if you've got a similar opinion. It's a safe space, we can speak out here.
Yeah, no, everyone, people are allowed to have Star Wars opinions, and you're allowed to have controversial ones. Although I won't lie on the internet. I think, to be perfectly honest, I think though we have just broken that rule, the internet would probably be better if for like a year everyone just agreed to not post their Star Wars opinions. I think we would, as a society, have a small chance of healing slightly.
Yes, but in the sort of Purge-esque week before that rule comes in, everyone getting their thoughts off their chest before they're not allowed to do it again, not sure that would be worth it for the year off.
You know what? I'd probably just go and live in a wood for a week while that was happening.
Okay.
I'll just put a bindle on my shoulder and just wander into Mark Eaton Park, and I'll just go live with the squirrels for a week.
I mean, that sounds lovely. Yeah. Anyway, that's me and my shit out of the way.
Okay.
Weird.
Okay.
What have you been up to?
Well,
aside, do you have more thoughts on the Book of Eli? No, what's it called?
Book of Boba Fett.
But yeah, that one.
Not without giving big spoilers, and I, it's not been out that long, and I don't really want to.
Yeah, fair.
I don't really want to give it. Although, how I put this? It was very bold of them to make the best episode of the show be not about the Book of Boba Fett. That was wild. But yeah, so you know what? Let's talk about some things that are not related to the thing you're going to expect me to talk about.
Okay.
So, last series of The Expanse came out, and I watched that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It doesn't end where the books end, and they've basically left a lot of things open because only one section of the story really completes, and the wider narrative of the big picture hasn't completed. And I think the impression I got is they were like, yeah, we're going to wrap this up now, and maybe later on we might get, funding to actually tell the rest of the story, but we'll wrap it up as best as we can now. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It does kind of wrap up a bit quick and a bit sharpish. It does feel like it could have probably done with a few more episodes. But I still enjoyed it. I got recommended The Expanse loads before I watched it, and I will say it does start off a little slow, and the sort of main character of the show does take a few seasons before you kind of warm up to him. I think it took a while before they really found his character, honestly.
Okay.
But it is genuinely really good. Yeah, I can definitely recommend The Expanse to anyone who likes sci-fi. Yeah, good. Can't really say much without really giving spoilers, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually, because we're speaking about music and albums earlier, one thing I've actually been doing is... because people have probably noticed that, like, each year I tend to have something that I will, like, categorize online. Like, I've done it with, like, reading books to get me to read more books, with models for painting models. I obviously did that for, like, 3 years on my side channel. And this year I'm trying to listen to more music again because I've found myself really getting stuck in a rut of just watching the same, listening to the same stuff that I've been listening to for the last decade.
Yep.
Because it's so easy to fall into
absolutely, yeah, I'm guilty of the same thing a lot of the time.
So what I did was I've been like sort of keeping track, and I'm trying to, like, my initial goal is to try and listen to, like, the equivalent of one album I've never listened to a week for the whole of this year.
Okay, how's it going?
What have I listened to so far? I
asked the question, but I'm quite aware of how it's going because I'm following the Twitter thread with interest. But for the sake of appearances and podcasts, how's that been going?
Yeah. I have listened to 16 new albums, many from bands I've never listened to before, and some from bands I'm already familiar with. It's been really interesting. I'm kind of low-key hoping to be able to listen to, like, 100 by the end of the year. I think that'd be a really nice thing, because I don't know how everyone else feels, but generally when I've spoken to people, it seems to be a common thing of that as you get older, you get kind of set in your ways with, like, the bands you like, and so it becomes harder to...
None of this new music is good anymore back in my day.
Yeah, so I'm like...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm not just listening to brand new music, although I have listened to a lot. But yeah, I'm trying to listen to genres I would not necessarily listen to. Like, I am listening to, like, my usual ska and punk and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But I've been trying to, like,
Well, you don't want to go, like, move completely away from stuff you like, otherwise it just gets a bit weird.
Yeah, if I just sat down and listened to nothing but gangster rap, then I would probably end up not liking that, because I'm forcing myself to just listen to only one genre that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly sure, like, Dre and Eminem type gangster rap has the same nostalgia pull to me that Star Wars does to you, possibly. Like, I was quite into that as, like, a young teenager.
Yeah.
It's not fully accept that it's awful, but, you know, yeah, they have a weird nostalgia thing for it. And
someone somewhere has just got really mad that you called Eminem a gangster rapper.
Well, he thinks he is. That counts, right?
I don't know. Not a genre I'm familiar with. I ain't going to say anything.
Me neither, really. I just listened to what the other kids at school were listening to. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention a couple of the albums that I listened to that I quite liked and I thought were interesting. So I listened to an album called Plant Gazer by a band called Show Me a Dinosaur. I mean, strong band name.
I found them and I listened to them solely because of the name. I didn't know anything about them, and I discovered an entirely new genre that I was not aware existed, which is black gaze. Which is what happens when a shoegaze band gets heavier and heavier until they become functionally a black metal band. And a characterization of it is that the vocals tend to be mixed really low down, so they effectively, like, the growls and screams become more a part of the instrumentation rather than a separate piece as it usually is mixed in music. Interesting. Really interesting. It's not my thing, but yeah, it's a very surreal. It's like all about these big, heavy soundscapes. So yeah, that was interesting. I listened to Onwards and Upwards by Culture Shock, who were a ska punk band from before third wave ska happened.
Ooh.
You might know some people from it because they're in, was it Subhumans? But also they were in Citizen Fish, which is where I know them more from.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to that. It's like, mixing like old school British punk with like ska. And Culture Shock is the band name. It's from 1988. That was really interesting to listen to because it's like, the stuff that I'm familiar with, but like an earlier iteration. I also listened to, did you know that Limp Bizkit released an album last year?
Yes, but only via your Twitter.
Yeah.
The album that I think of as the new Limp Bizkit album is either the album called or the album with Gold Cobra on.
Yeah.
Which would have been...
That's like 2010.
Yeah, I'm going to start with 20-something, because I'm confident of that much. 20... No, it was a bit... I'm going to go with...
2012?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11... Yeah, around 2012, I reckon.
I mean, if only I was sitting at a computer and could just tell you what year it was released. The answer is 2011.
Okay, well, we were about there. Yeah, that's the album that I consider the new Limp Bizkit album.
That was. I actually like. There's a couple of songs that are just like Limp Bizkit, but with a bit of more of a modern feeling to it, and the ones that really lean into just sounding like the bombastic Limp Bizkit that made shit like Rollin', those are quite fun. It makes me feel absolutely. 15 again. Yeah. I can't help it.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of it's quite forgettable, but there's a couple of moments where it kind of shines for the goofy fun that like nu metal had, and that's quite fun.
Yeah, nu metal's great.
I also listened to Biffy Cairo's album from last year that I didn't realise they released. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I've listened to it a few. Like I was massively into them from not before they were cool. I got into them when at Puzzle, which is when they got massive. And I was really into
I know, because they were playing in your car to every gig we went to for about 4 years.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're great.
And I say that as a positive, because they're good.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been getting slightly less interested as time goes on with the newer stuff. I prefer the like early stuff, which is such a cliched thing to say. But
yeah.
But yeah, I was really keen on listening to the new album. I've listened to it a few times in the car and just haven't quite got into it. And then... forgot about it, honestly. They're really cool.
No,
Simon Neil is I have a massive crush on Simon Neil, got to be honest. So I'm biased towards their music for that partially as well. But yeah, I've listened to it a couple of times, but I haven't quite got into that album yet.
No, I understand that. It is, there is that sort of thing where they started off a little bit. What's the word? Heavy is the wrong word, but like
noisy.
Noisy.
Is different. Noisy is different to heavy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they've become much more poppy over time.
And don't get me wrong. Like some of their big cheesy pop songs are great. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done that. And obviously, it's working well for them, and they've managed to make it into a good career. The pop melodies are one of the things that make them interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like how they'll go from like, this song's in 7/4, but it's got like a really poppy hook. Like,
it's really cool.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. But yeah, I understand that. I also listened to an album called The Gereg by The Who, not The Who as in Baba O'Reilly The Who, or Won't Get Fooled Again Who, as in The Who, the Mongolian rock band that made the song that's at the start of Jedi Fallen Order. So it's got like Mongolian throat singing and stuff.
Excellent.
That's a really, really interesting album to listen to. I'm meaning to, apparently they've done some covers of like Metallica songs and stuff that are apparently quite fun. So they're on my list. But I've listened to a bunch of other stuff. Like if you want to see this, I'm updating it on Twitter every time I listen to something new.
Okay.
But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't talk about music very often, and it is a big thing in all of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Piggybacking off that then, a band that I've got into since the last podcast, and now I am very excited for their new album, is a band that Snipe might have got you into. Have you been listening to much Wet Leg? Wet Leg are the best. They're so good.
That when they only had like the 2 songs out, you did play us one of them.
Yes.
And
they now have
one
like,
about bothering your mother.
Yeah.
That
they
one
now
was
have
that one was very good.
5 or 6 songs out in various. There's like a few singles, and they've also done a couple of like filmed gigs, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm struggling to think of the word. Where they play a gig for a TV station or a YouTube channel or whatever, and they're up on YouTube. So there's like 6 or 7 songs. Session. There we go. Sure. Their album is out in April, and it's the most excited I've been for a new album in a very long time. I'm like so genuinely excited for this album to come out because it's gonna be great. I'm like, yeah, Wet Leg. Check them out. They're hilarious and great and interesting. Like it's different, and it's really nice to be really into like a new band, but like not a new band for me, but like a new band for everyone. Like they got together. They've both been doing music for ages. Apparently, I've been reading interviews with them and things because I'm getting really into them. But they just got together there as like during COVID stuff. They hadn't really gigged that much or done much. They're from the Isle of Wight, where there just isn't a music venue apparently. That's just...
having been to the Isle of Wight a lot as a kid, there's a lot of things that aren't on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then, like, they just got absolutely massive in no time at all. Relatively speaking, absolutely massive in, like, no time at all. They did, like, they were doing, like, a UK tour, and they had to pull out halfway through because they, like, all lost their voices and were just knackered because they'd never done a tour before, let alone, like, a massive tour in big-ish venues. So they just...
Yeah, no, if we suddenly, like, something happened right. and our band became big and we had to tour, we'd all give up on day 3. We'd go, I want to go home and have a cup of tea, fuck off.
We did, like, a 3-day tour. We did, like, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in, like, Derby, Leicester and Nottingham that one time, and we were all broken for a long time afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is basically what seemed to happen to them, apparently. But yeah, they were playing, the gig that they pulled out of was in Bristol, but we couldn't have gone because we were busy anyway, so it was sort of like, okay, we're less sad that we're missing it now because it's not happening, but we'd rather it happened and more people saw them because they're great. Everyone check out Wet Leg and all the bands that we've said, but more importantly, and I know Snipe had backed me up on that one, so...
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that musical interlude aside, played a couple of games.
Yes.
I got really obsessed with playing Dirt 4.
Okay.
One of the many games that started off as the Colin McRae Rally series, and
wasn't one of the first Dirt was like the PS3 launch title or something? Was that Dirt?
Possibly. Because it was Colin McRae Rally Dirt was the first Dirt game. And now there's like...
Yeah, okay.
There's like Dirt Rally and Dirt are 2 separate series now. One's more simulatory, one's more arcadey.
Okay,
I played
that makes sense.
Dirt 5 is the latest one, but I was just in the mood to actually play a racing game because that used to be my thing. Like, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era.
Colin McRae Rally was great.
Yeah, all my favourite games were like racing games.
Tokka Touring Cars. Was it Tokka Touring Cars?
Yeah, I didn't really get into the first one, but I got really into Tokka 2.
Yeah, I have no idea what Tokka means. I said it out loud. I was like, that's not a word. Why did I say that? But like, it's imprinted in my brain, apparently. Isn't
it like it's the name for like the association that runs the...
Yeah, presumably there's some reason for it.
I forget what it means.
Yeah,
I've completely fallen off like knowledge of racing because I used to go to British Grand Prix and all sorts, and my grandparents did a lot of stuff at the Donington racetrack, so I used to be there all the time and see not just the type of racing that people remember, like seeing like truck racing and sidecar racing and stuff. But yeah, and I was like, I fancy actually having a racing game again. And I was going through like the list of things that we just had on Steam for like from various bundles, and it was like, oh, I'll play a rally game. And I was like, oh, I've got a bunch of the Dirt games. The latest one I've got is the 4th one. Let's play that. Apparently, it was the last really good one. So, but so yeah, I've been playing that. It took me like 50 hours to beat the career. So I guess you could say I got into it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, a lot of really like nice little touches. Like, so if you're not familiar, the way I don't know why anyone wouldn't, but I guess some people wouldn't be. The way rallies work is that you'll have the actual like event will be a bunch of stages where cars will drive across like an off-road, well, mostly off-road sections, and your time is added up, and at the end of the event, whoever has the shortest time wins. So no one's directly racing against each other. It's all time trials. And so the game is mostly that, but it also has a couple of track racing modes as well. And the actual tracks, unlike a lot of the rally games I previously played, and bearing in mind the last rally game I played was a rally game that I forget what it was called, but it had a white cover, and it was an early PS2 release, and I forget what it was called. WRC Rally, maybe?
That rings a bell. That's a thing. World Rally Championship. That checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like officially branded, but I think that was the last one I played, and so this is like, I don't know how common this is, but like the tracks aren't made by anyone. Well, the ones that you actually play might be, but it's all made from like pre-made pieces. And it can even algorithmically just make you a track. You just say how hard you want it to be and how long. Yeah, write your own jokes about what I just said. But yeah, so it leads to this kind of surreal thing where like you're driving around the track and like this track you've never raced on before, but because like how some of the pieces fit together, you go, oh, that building's there. That means there's probably a hairpin turn coming up, so you kind of brace for it. It's a little weird.
That's really weird.
Yeah, but because obviously it's all, you can just algorithmically generate these things as well. It means there is functionally infinite variety, whilst there also being limited variety. It's weird. But it did mean that I got really into racing the Group B cars, which meant that I actually learnt about Rally Group B, which, if you're not familiar, was a time in the 80s when for a few years they went, we want to attract other manufacturers to Rally, so we're going to make a version of Rally that has basically no rules, and people can just enter as obscenely powerful cars as they want. And there weren't like weight limits, so the cars became absurdly light and flimsy whilst having like 500 horsepower engines in them. And then 4 people died, so they were like, we shouldn't do this.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was it like, oh no, because I think it was like a thing where like 4 spectators died and like 3 people racing died. It was fucking rough. But the cars are like these kind of mythical, like obscenely powerful rally cars. I actually have the Lego kit of the Audi Quattro Group B car because I just really like how it looks. And so yeah, I've been playing around with that. Although it does have one of the more surreal bugs, I guess. So I started playing the game on, like, I've got it playing on the more arcadey modes, because there is a more simulation-y mode, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just want to relax with a racing game.
Yeah.
And I had it set on, like, really easy mode, and I was, like, just completely destroying everyone, and I was like, I'll turn it up a little bit so I've got a bit more of a challenge. And so I turn it up a couple of levels, and I find out that once you turn it on to, I think it's the 3rd level of difficulty, and I think there's, like, 6 in total, then the game starts displaying one of its more surreal quirks, which is that sometimes you will be racing against the AI and it will randomly decide that the AI is the best racer at anything ever. And you will go from one event where you manage to, by the end of the event, have a solid minute's lead over all of your competitors, like over like 5 different stages. You'll have racked up a full minute.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, okay, cool. And then the next race, they will beat you. You can be racing as hard as you can, and you will not be able to catch up with them, and they'll beat you by several seconds each race. And you have no idea when you go into an event whether you're going to be facing the consistently good opponent or the ones who apparently are racing you in a land speed record car. To the point that I looked up and I was like maybe I'm just really bad at some of these tracks and I just don't notice it. Maybe it's just me. And I looked it up and no, this is a problem the game has, to the point that I saw someone who posted some screenshots where they were racing and they couldn't catch up with this AI opponent. And then they checked the times afterwards and found that the AI was setting times 5 seconds faster than the fastest human time on record.
Right.
At that point, once I read that, I went, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm just going to bump it down. I'm just going to bump it back down to an easier setting and just enjoy the game and not worry about it.
Is it when you're racing it, because you're not racing as you described, it's the rally thing, you're doing time trials, you're not racing against people, but do you like see a ghost or whatever of other cars?
there's like a thing down the side, like a line, and it shows you how far you are through the track, and it shows your closest opponent.
Okay.
How close they are.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can see where the game is obviously fucking around, and it's suddenly you go. I'm not being funny, but that would have been traveling about 250 miles an hour to move that quickly.
Yeah.
There's something weird going on with it. I don't know. But I still really enjoyed it. Like, it does have its flaws, but it's a really fun game. You get to make your own rally team and pick your own sponsors. And,
cool.
And
Okay,
shit.
that's
You
nice.
know, it's quite.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. You repair your car between stages. So you're like going into it, and you're like, oh god, I had a real bad smash, and like my door's off. And, especially when racing in the Group B cars, because they're just absolute death
Just
traps.
explode every jump you go over.
It's like you're in a fucking MG Metro that's got 500 horsepower. That is a monument to man's arrogance, and no one should have made that. But it's also the coolest shit because my mum had a Metro when I was little. So racing in a version of it that, like, I'm pretty sure you probably had to sign a waiver saying you wouldn't sue, like your family won't sue when you die driving it, is quite interesting. I also, another game I've poured a similar amount of time into is Satisfactory, which is the game that's like Factorio but 3D. I say 3D as in it's like 3D models, not it's like VR 3D or 3D glasses thing. You know, it's 3-dimensional space you're in. Actually, I don't know if it has got VR mode. But started playing it on stream because with Snipe not being so great, I've been doing the Thursday streams with Longfang. And so we started playing Satisfactory, and that game has really got its hooks into me because it scratches the same itch that I got from playing the Tekkit mod, or the various Tekkit mods in Minecraft, and building computers and absurd systems that automate everything. Because it's basically just that.
Yeah, I've been so wanting to play it at some point. If
you ever do, you can play it multiplayer incredibly easily. Actually, it's a really nice touch of the multiplayer. Is that when a person is in, if you've been playing multiplayer with someone, when you log out, that person, if you log in and then carry on playing it single player, because you can just do that, the person who you were playing with in multiplayer, their character model will stay where they were, but they sit down on the ground and pull out a coffee and just sit there drinking coffee. Which led to a really kind of pleasant thing when I logged in and it had ended at like sunrise. We'd finished the stream at sunrise, and then I logged in to just see Longfang's character sitting on top of his tractor drinking coffee as the sun rises. It was like, oh, it's really picturesque and sweet. It's still in early access, so there's a few bits, like weird artifacts you can find that are work in progress, so they don't have a function yet. Like an artifact that for some reason is the shape of that S that everyone at school draws. I don't know why. But yeah, it's really a genuinely great game. Okay. Although it does offer a segue to the other part, the other things I'm going to talk about. Because in the first stream we did, there's times where you just have to sit there and just craft something, and you have to hold down either a mouse button or the space bar. And because it was the nearest thing to him, Longfang went and reached for a transformer that was Warpath, who's a tank. And he would lean that on his space bar so he could go and have a cigarette whilst he was crafting something that took an age to craft. Right. So whilst he was off, I quickly altered our little overlay to where it has our little cartoon faces at the bottom and added Warpath to that, and he's become the unofficial third member of the stream. And that leads us into the section where I talk about Transformers, because of course I've been doing more of that.
Of course.
You know what? I'll actually put in a little jingle here for the section where Wib talks about Transformers. Okay.
Good. I enjoyed that.
We'll find out whatever I decided to put in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my continuing Transformers thing meant that let's start because I was talking about games. I played through Transformers Battlegrounds, which is basically XCOM for children who like Transformers. And as someone who likes Transformers and likes XCOM, but am bad at it, and so playing a child's game is probably the best way for me to engage with that. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It's based around the Cyberverse Transformers thing. It came out like a year and a half ago or something, and just there was no fanfare for it. And so it's based on the most recent animated series for people that aren't up with the Transformers. And yeah, it's quite a fun little thing. It's got all the voice actors, as far as I'm aware, from the series coming back to it, and you just play through like a story that, you know, kind of just leads you through a kind of like condensed version of like a Transformers story. Like, doesn't tread on the toes of really what happens in the show, but you know, it does have some interesting things in that. You get your characters sort of build up a super bar like they're in fucking Street Fighter or whatever, and so you can unleash like super powerful attacks once you've built up enough of it, and you get better at like being able to charge it up to the point that on the final level where I'm fighting Megatron, I think I managed to actually take him down from full health to 0 by just like chaining all of these special abilities together in such a way that it was like, oh, this does this, which means he can't do that, and I do this, which means this gets an extra point, which does this, and it was just like this huge chain of things. I was only playing it on easy because I was doing it all on stream, and I didn't want to like, you know, waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was like, it was fun. It was a fun little game. It does have one of my favorite touches in it is that at the start of the game, you are actually a physical thing. You're not just the god in the sky that moves things around. You are a human who is picked up by there's a little AI computer thing called Teletran X, who's the computer from the Ark. From Transformers when it, you know, crashes into Earth, and they're all on it. The AI gets jettisoned, and this is like the mobile version of it. And it's referred to as Teletran X because the computer's called Teletran 1.
Okay. Yeah.
But Teletran X physically picks you up as a human off the ground to get you out of the way of the fighting, and you are asked to basically be the eye in the sky to direct them. And you kind of forget about this for large portions of time, and then you remember, wait, no. They occasionally will reference at the fact that Teletran has just been holding a random human the entire game. Which is just a fun little way of doing that. I enjoyed that. It's not amazing, but if you enjoyed Cyberverse and if you like XCOM style games, it is pretty good. I think I was made to be kind of a bit nicer to it off the bat, because one of the first couple of reviews I read about it was people saying, "Oh yeah, I played this with like my young son, and we really enjoyed it." And I'm like, "Oh," okay. And that's the thing. It's based on Cyberverse, which, though Cyberverse has got references in it to please adults, like it contains a character called Wreck and Ruin. Who was it? Rack and Ruin. Oh, fake fan. But he's originally from like the Marvel comics, like from the early 90s. So it's really only it's Rack and Ruin. Who's so he's only really going to be remembered by people who do that or read some of the later comics. Is the only real place he's been in. But yeah, he's actually on screen for the first time. So that was, little things like that go from really old things. It like meshes all of the different bits of it together into one hodgepodge that's sort of skewed a bit more comedic and a bit younger, but also it's just kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And yeah, so Transformers Battlegrounds, it's a bit expensive, probably, but if you find it cheap and you're interested in Transformers, and yeah, give it a go. I've also watched a handful of the other shows. I finished Beast Wars. I can't remember if I mentioned that last time. Beast Wars is pretty good.
You mentioned Beast Wars. I can't remember if you finished or not.
Yeah, I finished it. It's pretty good. Solid series. If you never watched it, give it a look. Just you have to look past the visuals because they're a bit janky. Because this is mainframe entertainment making things just after reboot, so it's a bit rough. I also watched the sequel series to that, which is called Beast Machines, and is deeply weird. It's probably the most original Transformers series because it's so far detached from everything. Like, the art of transforming becomes this spiritual thing, and it's all about creating these techno-organic, like, future for Cybertron. Megatron's it's the same. It's a continuation of Beast Wars, and so the characters are supposed to be the same, but a lot of them act very different. Like, Megatron goes from being this kind of mustache twirling villain who's always going yes, who's a lot of fun, to this kind of like fucking like genocidal monster who's not really having fun with it anymore. It's really surreal. I don't know if I'd say it was good, but it is original as far as these things go. The visuals have improved vastly from Beast Wars, though, I will say that. And there is some good, there's interesting parts in it, so it's worth a watch if you're into this kind of stuff. I also watched Robots in Disguise, which is, finished watching Robots in Disguise, which is the sequel series to Transformers Prime, which is generally held as being one of the best series that has been made for it.
Okay, how does the sequel hold up?
Like, you watch it and you go, I acknowledge that this is meant to be a sequel to this series, and multiple characters show up with the same designs and the same voice actors, but I have real trouble accepting this as existing in the same universe. Okay. But to be fair, this is true of basically every piece of Transformers media. When Transformers started, there were already... continuity-wise, there was the show, there was the comic, and there was the toy bios. All three of those were distinct continuities that contradicted each other. And that's not counting all the kind of smaller iterations of the individual ones, like the UK Marvel stuff had its own continuities and stuff. Transformers has always been a nightmare of continuity, which means that, honestly, it means people don't care about it as much. Like, because... like, you know, it's up to you if you want to decide whether the Beast Wars series is in canon with Generation 1, the Generation 1 cartoon. I interpret it as being such, but it's, to put it another way, on the wiki, they don't say this is part of Generation 1 continuity. They say it is part of the Generation 1 continuity family, where all continuities are lumped together by type. It's a whole thing. But it is ostensibly supposed to be a direct sequel, but its art style is radically different. It's not going for the more realistic look. It's going for a cel-shaded thing. It's much more comedic and lighthearted. But I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. The Decepticons all mostly being based around animals. So there's like, you know, like a porcupine Decepticon who's like a revolutionary. There's a crab like who turns into like a fucking little estate car who always runs sideways and is voiced by Jim Cummins. So you're sitting there and going like, why do I recognize that voice? And you go, because he voiced every character I watched in every cartoon in my youth. It's fun. It's a fun little series. That kind of gets the end, and it does all right. I don't think it's as good as Prime, but also it doesn't have quite as rushed an ending as Prime, so you know that's all right. It does also have a really fun new incarnation of Grimlock though, because Grimlock is always the best thing in whatever he's in. So you know. What else we got? Also I watched the Japanese sequel to Prime, because they didn't get Robots in Disguise, so they made their own one called Transformers Go, which it was not released on TV. It was bundled in with magazines, and two different magazines, each one got their own version of it. One half of it, I think one was like the samurai team and one half was the shinobi team. And it basically follows two kids who, through happenstance, meet up with Autobot teams who are on Earth, and then they engage in time-traveling escapades related to these artifacts that they refer to as mirrors, but are very obviously CDs. And it leads to them, at the end, joining forces and fighting the big bad, who is... I forget who the big bad is. Actually? It's not Predaking, because it's Predacons. I forget. It's not a very memorable story.
Evidently.
But they're only like 10-minute episodes. But the weird thing is that both the series, like, I understand why we never got it, because it's basically unlocalizable, because multiple episodes contain figures that are like mythological or historical figures from Japan's past.
Okay.
That me as a filthy Westerner had to like look up and go, oh, this is like a legendary swordsman. Oh, this was a historical guy who did this. Oh, okay. And that's the sort of stuff that would be very hard to localize. But where it gets interesting is that in like the final episode, Optimus Prime shows up, and it's actually one of the only time I've seen it where Optimus Prime is in one of these, and he's not referred to as Convoy, which is his normal name in Japan. He's actually called Optimus Prime, which is weird. And he shows up, and he is a triple changer that turns into a train and a dragon.
That is a good combo.
Yeah. I should point out, at no point does the train ever touch the ground. He comes down to Earth as a dragon, like a dragon made of light, scans a train that's driving by on the ground. It's like the front part of a bullet train. And then he turns into the bullet train, and then on rails made of light, flies along on this trail made of light, and then sometimes teleports. So it's a train that never touches the ground and flies and teleports, which one could argue would eliminate it from ever actually being called a train by any reasonable measure. But it's a thing. The interesting thing about the final episode is because the big gimmick of the toy line, the Transformers Go toy line that it was made to promote, was that all the toys were the two teams were combiners, and they combined in different ways. Like, you know, this one's the legs for this version, but then it becomes like the torso for this version, and it becomes the arms for this version, and they could just swap around. The toys actually look really janky to be able to fit in those gimmicks, but they could also do some things where they combined between each other and combine with the Optimus Prime from that toy line. I think it's called Optimus X Prime. But for the final episode, apart from like the first minute of it, both teams go to the same place, and then the last episode of each half is basically the same, but with one key difference, which is that the final combiner they make in one series, it's the version of the combiner where like the team leader from that team is like the main one in the combiner, and it's the other way around for the other one. So it leads to a point where there's this one series that technically has two continuities. You know what I'm talking about? Like weird continuities in Transformers? This is a wonderful example of it. You can find it all on YouTube, and it's been subtitled. I can't recommend you do it, but if you must do it, just watch one half of it. Even though technically the stories are different in both halves, they are following the same beats, so you are following roughly the same narrative. Okay. It's just both. The two kids have to learn lessons, and they learn them from historical figures they have connections to, and it happens in broadly the same way. It's just that one has 4 episodes and one has 6 episodes. So if you don't want to waste your time, watch the 4-episode one. If you want to see Optimus Prime as a dragon, watch the one with 6 episodes. There you go.
My thoughts from that. I didn't have time to say at the time because you were very excited. So. Dragon Train, Optimus Prime. Yes. Optimus Prime, like as train form, he's riding on tracks made of light, which is an electromagnetic wave. On the bullet trains in Japan, maglev trains, they're also not riding on rails and they're floating on electromagnetic things. So it's not entirely wrong.
They do have... Yeah, I forgot about it. They have a maglev thing now, don't they? Yeah.
I think the bullet trains are the magnet ones. I might be wrong. Apologies if my train knowledge isn't up to scratch. I'm sure I've just disappointed a lot of people.
My knowledge of Shinkansen entirely comes from Japanese animated shows at this point, like the Shinkalion, however you're supposed to pronounce it, the anime movie that I watched that is about trains that transform into giant mecha, and the movie that they made has Godzilla in it and the characters from Evangelion. So there is a bit where a train that's got the colours of EVA Unit 1 transforms while it's Cruel Angel's Thesis, I think it is, the name of the song from the start of Evangelion, which is a fucking bop, plays, and it was the raddest shit. And it also Hatsune Miku, the Vocaloid character, is one of the people that pilots the mechs. It's technically a continuation of a series, but I was like, it's probably fine, and I have never been more lost watching a piece of media. But it is also the most glorious thing I've ever watched. But it's all about bullet trains.
Okay.
So yeah, that also has trains traveling in the sky made of beam. The tracks are made of light.
I mean,
because of course
checks out.
This is just a thing, apparently. But anyway, the last thing I was going to mention, which is also Transformers related, which I imagine a lot of people listening to this will probably know. I started doing some Transformers reviews on my side channel, just of the toys. Because I've just been really enjoying it, and it's been a fun thing to just make. It's nice to have because I love my job. It is a wild privilege to be able to make YouTube videos about bullshit for a living. I love it. But, I'm talking about the same stuff a lot of the time, and it's nice to talk about something new and to be doing something out of a pure passion for doing it. And rather than there being that element of, well, I've got to get this out because it's my job. I've got to, pay bills have got to be paid. Because there's always going to be an element of that once it becomes a job. It's just the nature of the beast. And so I am just doing these because I wanted to, because I was like, this seems like a fun thing to try and do. And so I've made 5 of them, I think, at this point, dealing with some old stuff and some new stuff. And yeah, I've been really enjoying them, just making sort of 4-5 minute videos of just reviewing Transformers toys that I happen to have. I'm not as absurdly knowledgeable or as experienced as the big names out there in your Transformer reviewing sphere on YouTube, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning new stuff, and I'm trying to just do the whole thing with kind of a good vibes thing, I'm not just reviewing things and tearing them down, partially because I don't really have much to say about things that are just bad. And I don't own many things that are bad because I kind of make sure that the ones I'm buying are actually decent, or at least fun, or I have something to say about. So yeah, if you're interested in watching me talk about small plastic men that aren't Warhammer miniatures, then go to Wib Does Stuff and the Wib Does Transformers series, which is 5 episodes deep at this point.
So far.
So far. I don't know how long I'll do it. Maybe this will just become the thing that channel does. At the moment it is. But that's the thing, that channel's there for me to just do whatever my weird obsession is at the time. And so yeah, but I've been really, really enjoying that, and it has done the dangerous thing of giving me an actual reason to buy more Transformers.
Yeah.
And I really want to buy a Warpath now because it's become that third character in the stream, so I've become weirdly attached to that character, and I don't have one. But yeah, so we'll see where that goes. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, I think that's about me done. After I've talked for way too long about bollocks.
The podcast.
But yeah,
I mean, that's the subtitle of the podcast.
I guess technically, the purpose of this podcast is for us all to talk bollocks about what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So I suppose.
Hey, look, we've had video game chats. We've had relevant chats.
Yeah, we've talked about many different things, many different topics, but now we should talk about a quite different topic, which is questions that people have sent in to us. And I have a sneaking suspicion that there's either going to be far too many questions or way less than I'd imagine for saying we've not done a podcast for 2 months.
Yeah, there's a few, but not... Well, so, the old email address, the stupid one, the more stupid one...
Yeah.
That is now just a junk email address now. I've been checking up until this point, and we very occasionally get one still to it, but like because I'm logged into the Gmail thing, it's like easy enough to check. But yeah, this time there was like 40 emails, and they were all just spam. They were like just all complete junk. I was like, okay, that one. Obviously, the name of it has been put somewhere, that therefore it's awful. So when I first looked, I was like, oh god, there's loads to do. No, not that you shouldn't email in, but when it's our fault for leaving it so long, and me being lazy for not checking the podcast email apart from just before we record. But yeah, that one's basically a write off now. But then the other one had some good ones. We've got a bunch. We might.
What's the email that people should send it to?
The less stupid one is the drummer Matt, I think, at gmail.com. It's been a while.
It's the email address you tend.
It is, but I don't have to type it in to log into it, so who knows? I'm literally typed Gmail. Let's have a look, shall we?
132 episodes.
Yeah, I was right. I should have just have the confidence of a mediocre white dude. Come on, let's just go.
Yeah.
The drummer Matt at gmail.com. I was right. We're all good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
We're all good.
It's fine. And yeah, we've had a bunch of emails. Let's not dwell too much on many of them. There's not a crazy amount, but also I've not done this for a while.
We'll get through this lightning fast. Yeah. Or as lightning fast as we are capable.
Okay, Brandon, you guys are writers in the Star Wars universe. You get to design a planet that either a movie or an episode or a book or whatever piece of media is going to include. What is your planet like? What planet do you design?
I want a planet that is entirely populated by a rebel cell of gonk droids.
Okay. How would that?
I will
how
not
would
be
that
taking. I will not be elaborating upon it.
Okay, right, good.
What's your?
This is following on from my Mandalorian thoughts. I would like a planet that just hasn't invented or hasn't come up with the concept of bars, because every single episode of The Mandalorian starts in a bar, and I just kind of want to see how that would work when there isn't a bar and they don't have that crutch to fall on.
I would say. I mean, you could say that it's a crutch, but aren't like most towns and cities built around? There was a crossroads, so they built a bar there, and then a town grows around it.
Absolutely, but this planet they didn't. Oh no, it's a crutch that I've used. It was just we noticed it after the first few episodes, and then every episode starts like that, and we were just pointing out and going, "Hey, it's doing the thing."
Well, it's because it's kind of going for a space western.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, of course. It's just something we noticed, and it's just on my mind at the moment. So that would be my planet.
Fair. Okay.
It's not the most interesting answer, but if we pre-prepare these questions, they'd be better answers. But that's no fun. / I can't be asked. Blood.
Mostly the second. Let's be honest. Let's be honest with the people at home.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Blood Wolf Koji. D&D / role-playing type. Or it could be real life, I suppose, but I'm presuming role-play type question. You and your party of acolytes have just finished clearing out an insidious heretical cult, and one of you finds a huge stash of loot holding rare and highly valuable relics. How are they divided up between the party?
Whenever we've had those kind of things, it's like we've just divided them up by if they're weapons or war gear, accessories to whoever would benefit from them most.
Yeah, I think that's and then any gold or loot or money stuff we've just split evenly.
It's
not the most exciting answer, is it?
No, but I think that that kind of tells you the way in which a lot of us have played. I guess it's something I don't even really think of like the possibility of doing it any other way, because that just seems like it's kind of like the band thing when you see people and like when they really go granular about who wrote each song, and like to me it's just, well, if the band wrote it, the band wrote it, and
like
that's just how
someone probably contributed more. Yeah. It's usually you or Dicko that contributes more, but like I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so that's just naturally how we settle into. So it's that's just how we always do it. I'm sure one day one of us will play a character that means that that will
just get to play a dick.
Not happen.
It'd be really hard to play
one
like
of us
an awful person. He says, giving myself the highest of compliments. I'm just not an awful person.
We all just want to play fun adventures together.
I mean, yeah, if in doubt, in real life and in role playing, more equal is always more better.
Yes.
So, as far as I'm concerned.
God, I can't believe bringing politics into Dungeons and Dragons. This thing that has never had reflected the politics of its creators at any point of time.
Yeah, sorry for the boring answer, Koji.
That's what you get when it's an oops all maps episode.
Yeah, right. Okay, Scott, if you could pick the next 40k faction to get a codex that doesn't already have one, what would it be?
Rebel Grots.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously, yeah. I would maybe not a full codex. It'd just be like a supplement, really, just giving you the option to do that. Hell, I settle for like a White Dwarf article that just actually gave you ability to play them, where it actually lets them kind of synergize with it, because the way orcs are currently built means that there's really a lot of impediments to you playing such a force.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to work around them. Whereas I think it would be neat to just allow you to play them, and maybe actually give the Red Gobbo rules that aren't in Legends, so don't end up out of date really quickly. That'd be nice. That's what I do for mostly selfish reasons.
Yeah, fair.
And yourself?
It is a good question. Yeah. I mean, one of the examples that Scott said was Traitor Guards. That could be interesting.
Yeah. You could definitely do that, because that's one of those things where they're like, you can have occultists and stuff now, so like you can make a sort of pseudo Traitor Guard army, and of course you can just make an Imperial Guard army and just call it Traitor Guard army, of course, but like, in terms of like, keywords and like how it'd work in tournaments to be able to have allies and stuff, like there's a reason why a proper dedicated Traitor Guard force would be neat, and you could obviously make unique units that the Imperium wouldn't have access to. So,
yeah, I quite like. I mean, my idea for doing a Genestealer cult army was to have one that's used that codex, but not actually use any of the like basically Genestealers, and just have them as all the like vehicles and all the units there, but have them just like people on a planet that's not in the Imperium, and they just haven't quite got around to being all consumed yet. But it was quite a stretch. Well, it was a bit of a stretch from the point of the Genestealer cult list, with all the actual, Genestealers.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. I don't know. This is more from a niche in a gap, or sort of a gap in the work. But like to have some factions that were a bit more. They're not like baddies or evil, or I mean that's I get that's the whole setting, but like it would be interesting to explore some that aren't just like Genestealers or aliens that want to destroy things like orcs and all that sort of stuff, or their chaos or whatever, or their Imperium, all different shades of wanting to murderize everything. But there's kind of like
what?
People that are just like, well, not necessarily people, but some race or faction that is just kind of their own thing, but not small enough that they're meaningless, but it's just a little bit independent, I guess. I don't know.
I've just had what I think would probably be a really good idea then. Maybe a big book that is I don't know what you call it, Codex Rebels, for the sake of argument. And what it would actually be is just, it would be a book that has versions of like each army, the ones that it makes sense to do, that are rebel factions of them. So there'll be like, here are rules for making a Space Marine chapter that has rebelled but hasn't actually gone chaos. And I know most ones that do that end up going chaos because it's the one place they can go. But like to do that,
and then you've got your rebel grots, you've got your traitor
rebel
guard.
grots. You got your traitor guard. You could have that. Could even be a place to have things like I know they're not strictly speaking rebels, but like actually make a Corsair Eldar list. You could also do that. Could be a place for a dedicated Farsight Enclaves
that's what I was
list.
about to mention that.
You could do stuff like that. I am actually really behind that idea. Mostly for the rebel grots, obviously, but like in general, because like I think that's a really fun idea to be able to make factions that are like I quite often make armies that are not a non-standard interpretation of them. I've got my my Eldar that are an Exodite force of all spirit host stuff. I think like that. Yeah, I'm really on board with this idea. Games Workshop, James, I know you're listening because you're always listening. Make a codex that is just that. Even if you want to be really boring about it, then just make it and say that it will never be tournament legal. That's fine. I don't care. I'm never going to play a tournament again. Just give me that. Just that would be really cool. That would be cool of you. And it's been a little while since I've said that is a cool thing you've done. Please. Okay.
Good.
That's my call to action to a person who doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next up. That was quite a good answer, wasn't it? Next up, Agent Sinister. What is a food that you've always wanted to eat or cook, but haven't yet had the chance to?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I was about to say, like a deep fried Mars bar, and I was like, no, actually, I have tried one.
I haven't tried one. I would really like to. Can I have that as my answer? It's disappointing, I'm sure, but I would quite like to try one.
The answer is, you bite into it with a level of curiosity and go. You kind of expect it to be terrible, and whilst I've not sought out to eat one again. But it was nicer than I was expecting, I will admit. Okay. Possibly because it was my body shutting down, and it was just giving me happy hormones, because it was like, oh, well, he's dying. He's eating poison. Just flooding with good hormones, because this fucker's dying, is my assumption. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Because I'm a real finicky eater. And through things like when we've had things to PO Box, which by the way we have a new PO Box that opened last Saturday. So if you want to send us something, just as long as you don't send something that requires a signature, because we can't accept those. There's a video on the main channel that you can see, and it has links to we've got a full list of all the codexes we have and stuff. So if you want to send us a codex. Then you can look in there and see if we already have it. So you're not wasting your postage by sending us something that we can't do anything with. We have a new PO Box. But when people sent stuff to the PO Box, I got to try a lot of things that I like, like weird American snacks and stuff that I was curious about. I can't think. I know that at the moment we hang up, I'll go, shit, that was a thing I've always wanted to try. But I can't actually remember.
What's the hostess thingy that everyone was obsessed / is obsessed with?
Twinkies?
Yeah, vaguely intrigued to try one of them. Never had one of them before.
They're fucking
terrible.
terrible.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm very aware that they're terrible, but I'd quite like to experience the terribleness.
Okay, the little Swiss rolls, like the little ones that not like the chocolatey ones, the ones that got the jam and cream in them. Eat one of those. And then dump a full cup of sugar in your mouth, and then lick some plastic. That is a Twinkie.
Okay. Yeah.
It's you will eat it and you'll go, this is a worse mini Swiss roll.
Okay. That's that reminds me of this is a hot take here. What are your thoughts on Oreos? Because
I like
everyone is obsessed with Oreos, knowing everything. And don't get me wrong, the dairy milk with Oreo bits in it is pretty great. But like Oreos are just shit bourbon biscuits. they're similar, but they're worse in every measurable way. They're smaller. They're not as like chocolatey and nice. Like the amount of cream you get is less, unless you get the weird triple cream ones or whatever. But then it's like, why you're just admitting that the rest of your biscuit is shitty because you need more of the one good bit. Like Oreos they're rubbish, and I don't understand everyone's obsession when you can get a pack of bourbons for like a quarter of the price.
This is true.
It makes no sense. It boggles my mind. I cannot comprehend.
Personally, I do find them to be distinctly different enough from bourbons.
Yeah, like
that,
the biscuit bit tastes more like cardboard and less like nice biscuit. I appreciate they're different. That's not my point here.
I'm really enjoying this biscuit discourse.
Yeah. Oh man, that winds me up.
Yeah, no, I like them just fine. Actually, the ones I really like, you can get the ones that I think they're called enrobed, which are an Oreo, but it's covered in white chocolate.
Okay. I can get behind that.
I really like those. Those are really nice. If you get to see it, they're usually kind of expensive when you get them in like a little box. But if you see them, give them a try because it means that the harshness of the biscuit is taken away because you've obviously got the kind of smoother kind of taste of the white chocolate.
Okay.
So I think that works quite well, and yeah, I like Oreos just fine. I don't think they're not like my favorite biscuits or anything. Like they're no chocolate hobnobs.
Chocolate hobnobs are
all
great.
those terrifyingly unhealthy biscuits that they started making, that like McVitie's ones.
Are the ones with the like filling?
With the filling VIBs because they're very important biscuits. That has like, so it's like a chocolate digestive, but the which is a graham cracker. If you're American,
which I've only very recently learned isn't a gram, as in like GRAM cracker.
Yeah, it's because Americans can't pronounce the word graham.
Yeah, I only realised that recently, and I was like, wait, what? I've been wrong this whole time.
If any Americans are listening, and I'm sorry for this long conversation about biscuits, because
you don't know what a biscuit is. Well, you do, but you think there's some sort of like weird wheat-based scone or something. I don't.
Yeah.
You put gravy on biscuits. Like, wait, what?
Ooh, yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, if you know the reason why in America the name Graham is often pronounced as Graham, and you say graham cracker, like, please explain to me why, because I would love to know. But regardless of Americans saying everything wrong and me not just saying that because I'm English and it's, my job to complain about these things. It's almost as if language evolves. But yeah, so it's got like, a layer of caramel inside of this chocolate digestive, and I just sit there dunking them in tea and eating them. I'm just like, I've eaten like half a packet in like 5 minutes. These things will be the death of me. So Oreos are not up to that level. They don't even come close to that kind of level. But I do like them.
Okay.
I do quite like them. I think that your statement on them is a bit harsh, but much like your wrong opinions on the Mandalorian, I respect your right to hold wrong opinions.
Thank you. Yeah, not all of us have the benefit of all of our opinions being objective. Like Snipe.
Not all of us have objective opinions like Snipe, and not all of us are the person who gets to upload these, so if I really disagree with your opinions, I can edit them to like that clip, the clip from The Simpsons of like, I was reaching for her sweet cans, I can just edit your audio together to make it sound like, I don't know, I'll just bleep out what you're saying and then record a little insert and say, Matt, you can't be saying all of these slurs all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly confident you do not have like the I was going to say capacity. I didn't mean capacity. You can't be asked to do any of those things. Is the point I'm trying to make?
I mean, just because you're right doesn't mean that the threat isn't there.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right.
How the fuck did we get onto this biscuit discussion?
Is there a food that you've always wanted to try and you haven't had a chance yet?
Oh, yeah.
What was your answer?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have an answer?
I honestly
You've
don't
eaten
know.
everything.
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry. I nearly had one. I was like, Peeps, and I was like, no, someone sent them in to us years ago, and I've tried them. Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, I had two answers. That's all we needed. There's two of us. We needed two answers. That's all we needed. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Cool. New painter. In honor of Wibb's new obsession, what would your alternate form be if you were a Transformer?
I don't know. The obvious answer is to be like a train, but actually, I'm generally not. Apart from Astro Train, I'm generally not a fan of train Transformers. I feel like I'd turn into like I would want to turn into like a car that I find quite charming. Like, I don't know, like maybe something like very British. I don't know, maybe a mini Metro. I don't know.
Nice.
Actually, a mini would be cool. Yeah, just an old-fashioned mini.
Okay, yeah, we're thinking of we've got similar answers on this.
Yeah, what would you?
I would either be a Morris Minor Traveller, so that's the sort of van version that had the wooden panelling on.
Strong answer.
Or
strong answer.
A Volkswagen camper van, but they're like, I wouldn't be like the old like the 60s and the old like the T2 ones or the splitties or the bays, and I wouldn't be one of the newer ones. I'd be like the T25 or the T3. They're like the 80s ones that are like weirdly ugly and boxy and kind of adorable, but in their own weird, objectively ugly way.
And that would really fit in well with like a kind of G1 aesthetics. That was like, mid 80s.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah,
no,
those are my two answers.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could decide, but interesting that we both went towards like car van types when you could turn into anything really. I mean, I know
it's kind
it
of
is
the classic way. Because it's like I could sit there and go like, oh, I'll turn into an audio interface for a computer. I'll be my own Real Gear robot.
I'll be a Virgin Media Internet hub.
But yeah, no, it's just, there's something about like I think because it's just you think Transformer and like the first thing you're probably going to go to is someone who turns into a car, and like I have a real soft spot for like a lot of the old because they have like old cars. Like I like Wheeljack because he turns into a Lancia Stratos, and obviously Bumblebee turns into a Volkswagen Beetle. And, I think there's something quite fun about turning into, like, cars from a certain era. Like, there's the trio of Smokescreen, Blue Streak, and Prowl, who all turn into a Nissan Fairlady Z, isn't it, or something? And, like, yeah, they're real cars, but they're older cars, so they have that kind of nostalgic quality to them. And, like, you can buy ones nowadays that turn into modern versions of cars, even if they're not necessarily like licensed. They're based on modern cars, and whilst that's cool and all, like to me, there's going to be some part of Transformers that is always going to be stuck in the 80s. So the more retro look of vehicles is like an element that I find quite charming. So that's probably what draws me to that kind of style of thing. Or something.
Okie dokie. Right, a couple left. And by a couple, I mean literally not a couple because there's 3 left.
Okay.
Sentient Hair. A slightly open-ended question. Interpret it how you will. The love child of Warhammer and Transformers. Would you play it?
It does exist, and I always forget the name of it. There is a tabletop wargame where you play as robots that are supposed to be Transformers, and a lot of them look very similar.
Okay.
I think it's called like Bot War or something. The only reason I haven't bought some is that the minis, the last time I checked, were kind of expensive.
Okay.
And I was too busy buying actual Transformers. So yeah. But I would like to try it.
What about if someone creates like a Warhammer type, that sort of game, but more like they're on the sort of Gaslands sort of idea in that someone comes out with a rule set, but you use your actual Transformers as your like models?
That would be very cool because I know they do that. Like they do that for Gundams. Like if you're, collect Gunpla.
Okay.
And I have on my travels through old like wargaming found 2 separate games that use Lego pirate ships to do a war game.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty they're pretty cool.
That does sound pretty cool.
But yeah, I would absolutely give it a play. And yeah, something more Gaslandsy that uses like your actual Transformers. That could be a really fun way to do it. There was actually a sort of halfway house. There was a thing that Hasbro put out called a Tactics, if I remember its name correctly. And it was...
Oh, yeah, that's a clever name because they're attacking and there's tactics. I like that.
And it was kind of like a really, really stripped down war game where you took turns to like move your tokens that were characters that came from Transformers, Star Wars, and Marvel was the 3 licenses that they had. And they had like advanced rules where they'd have more in-depth things about like how they affected, but how you attacked was the actual figures either had a spring-loaded gimmick, so like they'd swing an arm round, or they would have like a missile on them that you would fire, and you'd physically fire them and try and knock an opponent over, and if they got knocked over, they got knocked out. So it was a really basic war game. So yeah, there have been a few versions of it. I do want to play them at some point. Not least because it just sounds fun, and also any game where you can, I don't know, play as Optimus Prime and then punch Spider-Man in the mouth whilst Anakin Skywalker watches sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty great. All right, last couple relatively quick fire ones. This first one,
okay,
Poirot. You're either going to have an answer to this or you're not. Let's not dwell if you don't.
Okay.
If there was a Transformer in 40k, what would be the name of the Transformer Baneblade?
I don't know.
Yeah. It was either one of those ones that you'd have something would spring to mind quickly, or it wouldn't, and we'd spend 3 hours trying to decide the best one.
The trick is sitting there and trying to remember, like, what existing tank Transformers already exist. However, what you could do is do one, but have it as being one of the crossover things. So you could just have an existing tank-based Transformer like Warpath or even Megatron. Because Megatron's usually a tank now. A tank now. So yeah, there are options. Although now I've just been seized by a desire to paint a Baneblade in the bright green and purple camo of Generation 2 Megatron.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be rad. Okay, move on, because otherwise I'll start looking up the prices for another Baneblade.
Last one, Mazu, Songfox. Couple of quick fire ones. Would any of you consider playing the Star Wars KOTOR remake when it comes out? Or alternatively, when it's on sale?
I have never really played them, but Snipe probably would, because she's big into the Old Republic MMO.
Wait.
I don't think she's played the Knights of the Old Republic games, specifically the single player ones, which I think is what we're talking about, because I get confused because there's like the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic, and they are separate things.
Yeah.
And I haven't played. I played a bit of the MMO. I've never got around to playing the single player one, but yeah, I'm sure Snipe would give it a go. I'd probably give it a go at some point, but I'm bad at playing video games. I'm either not playing any for months or spending 50 hours playing a rally game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'd be keen. Knowing nothing about it and how well they're going to do it or not, I'm sure if you're a fan of the original, you'll probably hate the remake because they're probably going to do something that makes it a different game fundamentally. But yeah, that seems to be how these things go. But I mean, the idea of the game is really good. But I did try it at some point when it wasn't long enough ago. It wasn't like when it first came out, so I didn't have a nostalgia for it. So it was when it like felt old. And it there was some of the things like with old games that you're just not used to. Like it was just not at all obvious what I was meant to do or anything, and I had no idea. And I was like, I can't bother to like read a guide and go through a guide, but I just couldn't for whatever reason.
Was it sort of the thing where you played it at that sweet spot where it's not old enough to have retro charm, but it's like not new enough to have the sort of like antiquated systems that we've moved past?
Yeah, pretty much. But the idea of like a single player role play type games in the Star Wars universe sounds amazing. So I'd check it out probably. I mean, we'll see. Who knows? It might be terrible. Very last question from Mazu again. On a separate yet slightly related note, what are your thoughts on Diablo?
I have never played Diablo.
No,
I have not played a single game of any of the games at all.
Neither have I.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a series I have any connection to. The first Blizzard game I played was like, I think I actually played a little bit of like Warcraft 3, and then I played WoW, and then I played like Overwatch, and then that's like kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I never got into it. Snipe got into Diablo 3 after it got all the shit ripped out of it, the auction house and stuff, and played a bunch of that. I know that much. But it's not something I've got any experience with, I'm afraid, so I can't offer any real opinion.
Yeah, same. And
I'm not about to start now, because Blizzard is a den of scum and villainy.
Yeah, there is that. For whatever reason, it doesn't tick my boxes. Like, I'm happy to sit on WoW and have been for God knows how many hours and watch the numbers tick up on that. But for whatever reason, thinking of doing the same in Diablo and just watching the numbers tick up just doesn't do it for me at all. I have no idea what the difference is there.
Those kind of dungeon crawly things, it just I've never really gelled with them. Like, it's one of those things where a bit like, say, the vast majority of the Resident Evil series, where I'm like, I acknowledge and I understand why people enjoy these, but for me, I just don't get anything out of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, same. Although the exception to that is one of my favourite games growing up was Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance on the PS2.
Well, yeah, but that's quite a different thing.
It's just a hack and slash numbers tick up as you go through thing.
Yeah, but that's a more raw adaptation of like Dungeons and Dragons.
The Dark Alliance is very simple, very Diablo-esque. You just,
Oh, is the the Dark Alliance was the console game, wasn't it?
On the PS2.
Oh shit! I entirely forgot about that.
Yeah, and this was at a time it wasn't because I liked D&D, because I didn't even know what D&D was at the time. I just had the game, but that was one of my favourite games. Whenever that era was, PS2 era, and yet, it didn't quite translate over to Diablo for whatever reason. But yeah,
sometimes just one game there'll be like one game in a genre that just it ticks the right boxes for you. And it's not necessarily because it's a good example, but it's just because there's something about it that just you played it at the right time. Sometimes is all it is,
Yeah, but yeah, no thoughts on Diablo itself. Right,
no thoughts, head empty.
Yes, and that is end of podcast.
That is indeed the end of the podcast. So thank you, everybody, for listening to this. And sorry that it was so long since the last one. And sorry that it was just the two of us and you did not get to hear the dulcet tones of Snipe. She might be back for the next one. Might be not. Don't know. We'll figure out. We'll sort it out. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you hopefully on time for the next one.
I don't know when that is.
But yeah, so you all take care out there.
Yeah, bye.
Goodbye.